A lot's changed in the last 100 years. I think what hasn't changed is the heart and courage of the individual soldier.
I feel like I'm walking on the shoulders of giants. I mean, the sacrifices that our soldiers have made.
They've always rose to and exceeded expectations, and that's the mark of a great unit.
We're disciplined, we're well-trained, and we're professional. And there's nobody in the Army that has the capability that we have.
4th ID has always been on the pointy edge of the spear, on the cusp of something important for the nation.
They've always been at the forefront of adaptation and innovation. Force 21, our digitized units.
And they continue to do that. They lead from the front. They have an excellent training facility out there at Fort Carson, Colorado, now that they're back at their original home, and they'll continue to lead.
And this job was put a smile on my face as watching all things Europe. First ever heel-to-toe, 3rd Brigade, 4th ID coming into Bremerhaven, maneuvering all over Europe, ending up in Poland and being kind of America's first line of defense in Eastern Europe. That's a pretty powerful statement.
No one thing stands out. It's not just one battle. It's not even just one campaign or one war. It's the totality of service, 100 years of getting after it, war after war, battle after battle, tens of thousands of soldiers after tens of thousands of soldiers. The 4th Infantry Division has always been there, and it's always been given the most difficult tasks that had to be accomplished, and they always came through.
And it's kind of rebuilt the reputation of being a combat division over the last 15, 16 years, and the number of deployments they've been on and how they've led the way in so many areas.
Let's go!
That's because of the young leaders that we had and the non-commissioned officer leadership and the officers who dedicated themselves to that success.
There's no doubt in my mind, you don't win wars without soldiers or junior leaders. That's a fact.
To be an Iron Horse soldier, one, you got to know the standards, you got to be disciplined, and you got to be ready to fight and win.
The Ivy Division has always been asked to do the hardest jobs. The division was formed at Camp Green, North Carolina in December of 1917. 6 months later, the Ivy men were over there in France.
World War I, 4th ID is created. And this incredible expansion of the United States military. They went from like 150,000 to 6 or 8 million over the course of about a year or a year and a half.
The 4th was the only division to fight alongside both French and British forces. The trenches of war would face the modern warfighting capabilities of the Ivy men.
And received battle honors for 5 campaigns. They fought the Second Battle of the Marne.
Those time frames were different, and they fought different wars, and the battlefield changes. It changes every day.
They're done.
I mean, they had a lot of challenges that they had to face, and, you know, just think, they didn't have in World War I. You know, they didn't always have the best weapons back then, so they had a lot of challenges, but they took what they had and they made the best of it, and, you know, they won wars because of it.
What happened simultaneously was the creation of organizational designs that allowed 4th ID to operate as a division. I mean, think about it. You go from an army that essentially is a garrison-based army that doesn't have any field experience to speak of and really doesn't know how to fight as a division. And then you stick them in this incredible crucible of World War I, and not only do they become part of the fight, they also are learning how to be a division.
During 11 months of fighting, the Great War took its toll. Of the 32,000 Ivy men sent to fight, nearly 14,000 would become casualties of war.
This day is set upon a mighty endeavor, a struggle to preserve our republic, our religion, and our civilization, and to set free a suffering humanity.
Chosen as the spearhead amphibious division, the Ivy men would lead America to war.
The division's 8th Regiment put the first troops ashore at Utah Beach.
Within the first 12 days, more than 5,000 were wounded, and more than 800 were killed.
The pictures of World War II, you know, the thing about that war, in World War II, the division fought for 199 days of straight combat, from the time it hit Utah Beach all the way through the Siegfried Line and got into the Hurtgen Forest. 199 days of straight combat.
Early in November, the 4th pushed into the Hurtgen Forest. New terrain.
That also is a study in not only mission command, mission accomplishment, but leadership.
If you go back through 4th Division history, that's what you see. As a leader, you've got to be fearless under fire and not afraid to stare the enemy down, and that's important.
The 4th Infantry Division fought across Europe for 11 months, participating in every campaign.
The ability to break out of France and into Germany and subsequently beat what was arguably the best army in the world at the time was quite an accomplishment.
In July 1945, the division returned home to prepare for the invasion of Japan. However, the war ended, and the Ivy Division wouldn't see its next major conflict for 20 years.
An Asia so threatened by communist domination would certainly imperil the security of the United States itself. Of history.
The courageous Ivy men carried the war to the enemy and faced him toe-to-toe for a slug-out that ended in triumph for the 4th Infantry Division.
22 years after landing on Utah Beach, the Ivy men entered the jungles of Vietnam. Back home, America waged its own war.
That was a rough period for our country, for any soldier in the Army at that time. The sacrifices that our soldiers back then during Vietnam made.
But they continued to fight the enemy wherever they found him.
You're looking at a high draft rate. You're looking at who volunteered, who didn't. And we didn't have a professional non-commissioned officer corps then, but the 4th Infantry Division was a very well-trained and professional organization.
Known for its warfighting capabilities, 4ID held the largest area of operations of any division in Vietnam.
Ivy men swept through the steaming jungle near the Cambodian border.
They were the first line of defense for South Vietnam's border, covering more than 1,000 miles along the Ho Chi Minh Trail.
We saw a lot of heavy action against a very determined and ruthless enemy.
The powerful partnership of heavy mobile guns and Ivy infantry combined to pin down large enemy units and methodically beat them into the ground.
Ivy soldiers calibrated warfighting excellence during its 4 years in Vietnam.
Toughest fighting in Vietnam by a draft army.
The division earned 11 campaign streamers.
Our 4th Infantry Division Vietnam veterans are so proud of their service. So proud of what it meant to them to serve and wear the patch of the 4th Infantry Division. And I believe they influenced those who came after them.
In 1970, the 4ID returned to Colorado. Reformed as a mechanized division, Iron Horse became the call sign. 4ID would train and remain ready to lead the Army into the 21st century.
Uncertainty right now as to what is happening. You can see that. Oh,
wow.
We just saw.
Oh my goodness. You're looking at another live picture right now. This
Tower
does not
2
look like an accident.
Thousands of lives were suddenly ended by
Another
evil,
plane has hit Tower 2, the
despicable
Twin
acts of
Towers.
terror. We go forward to defend freedom. Our military is powerful, and it's prepared.
The global war on terrorism started the longest period of conflict for the Iron Horse Division. In 2003, Ivy soldiers took their expertise to the sands of Iraq.
We did the fastest deployment of a heavy division from port to into contact that's ever been accomplished in our Army.
General Odierno led 17,000 soldiers into Operation Iraqi Freedom. Within its first year, they captured America's #1 target.
We captured Saddam Hussein. And the work we did in really setting the tone for cooperation between Special Operations Forces and conventional forces.
He was hiding in a hole. This is a styrofoam lid that was over top, had dirt over top.
It was the work that we did in 4th ID that really set that up. We were the first ones to do that. And it's now carry on now for the last 15 years.
Pulled up and he was hiding in the hole with an AK-47.
Operations were set in the most dangerous area, the Sumi Triangle.
It was rough. People didn't like us over there. We were trying to change the minds and the ways people think, and we were the headquarters for Baghdad. It was just very, very intense. We lost a lot of soldiers. You know, times were hard. I mean, you know, when they don't want you there, they're trying to do everything they can to kill you.
We are setting the conditions for stability and security in Baghdad. And this is a decisive period in the campaign as Iraq transitions to self-governance. Our soldiers have risen to the challenge and are performing like champions in one of the most complex and demanding environments that I have seen. Iraq was very hard in 2005 and 2006 because we were in the fight, and they always called on us to do the hard jobs because they knew, one, there wouldn't be no complaining, that we'd get on with it. But at the end of the day, when you lose people, you don't forget that. You don't forget it. And to this day, I feel accountable and responsible, and will always, because these were special people, and special people are soldiers. And that's what's, you know, those are tough times.
The division entered Operation Enduring Freedom in 2006, but with the end of Operation Iraqi Freedom, the division focused their warfighting capabilities in Afghanistan.
200, add 100.
You know, having led the division in combat and led soldiers in combat in the 4th Infantry Division and routinely sending them to combat and receiving them shows that the 4th Infantry Division is a unit which has been called upon repeatedly, not just in Iraq and Afghanistan, but for 100 years to go do that very tough work that we ask very tough soldiers to do.
They play a critical role in peace and security throughout the world and providing quality, disciplined leaders, soldiers, and unit cohesion that I think represents everything about the goodness of our Army.
In Afghanistan, soldiers face a complex battlefield. Despite intense enemy contacts, Iron Horse soldiers proved their valor.
Orders on them as well. Thank you very much.
Just the numerous Silver Star award winners, Bronze Star with Valor. We had 2 Medal of Honor winners that the division is very proud of up in the battle at Cop Keating.
Former Army Staff Sergeant Clinton Romachet was presented America's highest military decoration.
This award is for the 8 soldiers that didn't make it, and for the rest of the team that fought valiantly and magnificently that day.
They were in a very difficult position, in very difficult terrain at the bottom of a mountain, basically in the bottom of a bowl, and were attacked by more than 300 Taliban with 65 of our troopers, and just how they performed that day and turned the tide against the enemy. So there's been countless times I've been proud to be in 4th Infantry Division and wear this patch, and proud of our soldiers.
25 Ivy soldiers have earned the Medal of Honor. Thousands more have fought and won the trials of war.
Those actions these young soldiers take on their own in the most dangerous situations that will continue to carry the division and its legacy forward to the future.
Every soldier is a part of history. Iron Horse soldiers make history.